And welcome to our speed limit bylaw hearing. Could I please ask you all to stand for our opening karakia? Te taua mai I runga, te taua mai I raro, te taua mai I roto, te taua mai I waho, kia tau ai te mauritu, te mauriora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. We have apologies today from Councillor Brown, and Councillor Simpson will be a little bit late. And just also checking to see who we have online. I've just had a message from Councillor Tapani, who is having trouble logging on, so he will join us when he gets an opportunity. Happy to move those apologies. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan. Seconded by Councillor Price. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest? Announcements by the Mayor. I did just want to take a moment to acknowledge that a group of mayors, deputy mayors and some chief executives travelled to Wellington yesterday to meet with various stakeholders regarding Three Waters. So this is the councils, the 24 councils that have joined the plenary MOU. Myself and Deputy Mayor Brosnan were meant to be joining them. Unfortunately, due to weather conditions in Wellington, it was uncertain if we would actually be able to land or be redirected to Christchurch or Palmerston North. So we decided that we wouldn't join them after all, but I understand that the day went very well, and looking forward to having a full update for everybody on the conversations that were undertaken. Any announcements by management?
No, thank you, Mayor Weiss.
Just to advise, of course, that this hearing is being live streamed and recorded. We have 3 speakers today who will have 10 minutes to present and respond to questions. And so we will move straight into that, and I would like to invite Alan White from Bike Hawke's Bay to the front to present to us. Welcome, Alan.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to our submission. I will speak briefly on the issue of speed and impact this morning, and then I'll comment briefly on the submission analysis that the council officers have provided. I did share our speaking points to the council staff yesterday, and I've had some good information back, which has been helpful. So it's certainly pleasing to see both councils and Waka Kotahi's support for most of the proposed changes. The one exception is the Reina Catholic School in Guppy Road. And there, Waka Kotahi have recommended a posted speed of 40 kilometres an hour, not the 30 that was in the public consultation. Unfortunately, there's no narrative explaining the rationale behind Waka Kotahi's position, and whilst we appreciate that Guppy Road is a feeder link into the expressway, the suggestion for a variable speed limit would be for only a very short period of time, twice a day, to a maximum of 55 minutes. I did take the opportunity to look at Waka Kotahi's own information sheet on speed on its website, and it says the probability of a pedestrian being killed rises as impact speed increases. It approximately doubles between 30 kilometres an hour and 40 kilometres an hour, and doubles again between 40 kilometres an hour and 50. The risk to vulnerable pedestrians, such as elderly and young children, is even higher. So that's what our Transport Ministry is saying. The same Waka Kotahi information sheet has a Road to Zero video embedded in it. And the introductory sentence of the narrator in that video says, "What goes into setting a safe speed limit? Well, it's just not a number on a stick. It's all about people and how to keep them safe." The video clip goes on to cover the factors to be considered in setting a speed limit, and that does cover the wider context, traffic densities, accident statistics, etc., and then focuses back on speed being the biggest factor in crashes. Now, there are 365 days in a year, and that's 8,760 hours. Variable speed limits will be operational outside Rainier for 35 minutes before school and 20 minutes at school end. 55 minutes daily, 5 days a week. The school year comprises 180 days. Annually, that results in speed reductions in front of Rainier School totaling 165 hours of 8,760. So that gives you some context of what this proposal would mean if the speed limit was reduced. The sharing of the rationale for Waka Kotahi's position, the agency that says it's all about people, would have been useful to submitters. Also, advice from council staff on crash, incident statistics, traffic composition, the trucks, vans, cars, the density of traffic, and the pulses of that traffic would have helped submitters get a better understanding of the general context around this proposal. Bike Hawke's Bay also sought an extension in the road length of the advertised variable speed limit for Rainier. And I noted submitter 98, Glenn Van Robertson, and submitter 58, Carla Penn, both suggested similarly for Estdale. There's no comment on the practicality or merits of either of these suggestions. Submission 71 from Sue Martin, who supported the Rainier School reduction, stated there had already been a student death outside the school. I returned to Napier in 2015, and I wasn't aware of that, but in sharing the submission, the talking points at least, with Tony Mills, he advised me that that death was an 11-year-old child on a cycle, in the cycle lane, and he turned, he or she, I don't know the gender, turned in front of a van, and the child unfortunately died. And whilst that's very tragic, it's certainly something of sufficient moment to have actually noted in the material that went with this suggested reduction in speed. It's heartening to see the police support for all the proposed amendments. There was no comment in the analysis, however, that the police have been involved in the process or were committed to enforcement if this proceeds. The Waka Kotahi Traffic Note 37 states that to be effective, variable speed limits in school zones must be able to be enforced. I'm not aware whether the police have committed to that action, and no other submitter is either. So in closing, certainly appreciate the opportunity to make our submissions, make our comments heard, appreciate the opportunity to talk today, but in future would certainly like to see more traffic data and a lot more hard research-based statements supporting the proposals being put, or at least giving us context for the submissions we may make. So thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. Unfortunately, I've got another commitment, so I'll have to go on video to check you guys out as you go through your deliberations, but it is appreciated.
Thank you very much, Alan. Now, just before I open up for questions, I just did want to check with council officers with regards to the Rainier variable school zone. My understanding is we are actually bound by the Waka Kotahi recommendation. We don't have the ability to actually change from that. Is that correct?
You ready?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, on the variable speed limits, we have to go with what Wakataki say.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
Yes, just through the chair, just following on from that question. The other schools in Napier, such as Nelson Park and Onikawa schools, what was the speed that we set for those schools being on kind of a main road? Was that 30 or 40? Did we set those ones?
Chair, I'll just check.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, we'll give council officers a moment to check that one.
I was just looking for consistency.
Councillor Crystal.
I know the speed outside Taradale Primary on Church Road is 40. That was what we passed last time. So I'm not sure about the other one.
Just following on from that, so what was the difference between the 40s and 30s, how we made that decision?
I think it's very much dictated by Waka Kotahi.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll just check to see, are there any questions for Alan?
Yes,
Councillor Bogue.
through you, Madam Mayor. With Willowbank Road, Alan, you recommend a reduction of speed there. How does this work for cyclists with the current speed of 100? Are there issues there about it?
Sorry, which one was that,
Willowbank.
Maxine? Oh, Willowbank.
Bank.
Willowbank is not a road I ride. I do cross it frequently with the new pathway that goes through there. And it's a bit like Prebenson when you go across the expressway roundabout. Where you've got cars travelling at speed, it's very hard for a cyclist, and maybe I'm an elderly cyclist now, to judge the speed at which that car is coming forward. And I always go for a very conservative approach. If there's a car coming, I don't cross. Youth and youngsters being kids, you know, I can remember when I was a kid cycling in Napier, you just did what you wanted to do. And but Willowbank, it's narrow. I think I rode it once when I came back in 15, and yeah, it's not one that wasn't enjoyable. I'd rather ride the expressway. You've got, you know, two narrow bridges, but you've got plenty of shoulder. Certainly Willowbank, there's a lot of conversation, as you see there, about the 10% NZTA criteria, and no response as to just what that means, and some submitters asked for it. Some said that the whole New Zealand economy was going to slow down. Well, that's why it got me onto the hours and minutes. It should be about safety. The cost of a child's life, in terms of economic terms, without the human terms, is huge. We lose a lot.
There's no further questions. Thank you very much for your submission and your time today, Alan. Much appreciated.
Pleasure.
And I'd now like to invite Nicola Nicholson to come and present, please. Welcome, Nicola.
Morena. For those who don't know me, I'm Nicola Nicholson. I'm here today in my capacity as Board of Trustees member for Port Ahuriri School. Alongside that, I'm also a parent of students, so I've been at that school for 4 years. And aside from that, I'm also a resident, so I live on Goldsmith Road. I've lived there for 11 years, so I'm well versed with the traffic issues around this part of Napier. We just wanted to come along today. Sorry. Is that better?
Thank you.
So I just wanted to come along today and support what was in the report and support the officer's recommendations. As we put forward in our original submission, that we would like that variable speed zone extended along Battery Road, that intersection between Battery Road, Lever Street, Aussie and Goldsmith is particularly difficult, and I know that that's been acknowledged by your transport team in the past. There has been work done there in terms of median turning space. However, it's still corners cars go through there at exceptional speeds, and I know that in the previous round of hearings, our chair made mention of the fact that there was a speed study done and that there was a speed recorded of 120 kilometres at 9 o'clock on a school morning. So that's kind of the level of danger that our children are having to navigate when they're coming to and from school. So the proposal of reducing the speed down to 30 k's in a variable speed zone is one that we strongly support. We also note that the police were in support of that. They've attended multiple accidents around that corner over the years, and so they're obviously well versed as well. We support the signage, the electronic signage that's suggested. Also around that area, it should be taken into account that there is a retirement village, 2 daycares and a bus route and a bus stop. So it's actually a wider issue than just the school, it's the whole community. And I would also note that in your spatial picture, you've identified Ahuriri as a zone for growth. So that would no doubt increase those traffic movements. Hopefully it'll increase the public and active transport in that area. So that's something that's going to really need to be considered as that area grows and diversifies. It's really just a quick submission today to say that we support it and we wanted to turn up and acknowledge the mahi that's been put in by the council and the staff and everybody behind the scenes, and just really show that we're in support of it and answer any questions if you've got any.
Great, thank you very much, Nicola. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Taylor.
Nick, thank you for your submission. Just in your opinion, do you think that the traffic calming measures on Battery Road have actually had an effect in reducing the speed?
Well, I would hope to answer yes. However, witnessing a crash into the median barrier, it would have been about a month ago, where would have been afternoon about 4 o'clock, someone driving along Battery Road and drove straight into the median strip and took out the barrier. It still greatly concerns me. And I know that there's issues around that road being used as a secondary access road for the port, should anything happen to the main highway, and that does need to be considered. But I think some harder boundaries rather than those soft median things, but then that's a consideration with the logging trucks needing access and stuff to the port. So it's really, I think having identified it in that spatial picture as a zone for residential growth, there's going to have to be some really hard conversations going in what you need to do and to keep those people safe. And I would also raise the point that this isn't reverse sensitivity. The school's been there for over 150 years and was there before the port. So, it's the oldest primary school in Napier. So there is going to need to be some further work done, I think, through that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you for your submission and your time today, Nicola.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our third and final submitter has not arrived as yet, and we are pretty much on time, so we will proceed, and if they arrive whilst we're deliberating, we will provide them with the opportunity to speak then. But in the meantime, I'd just invite council officers to the front I think we'll take the paper as read, but just to answer any questions that councillors may have, and just to check in whether you did get the answer to that those 2 schools on Kennedy Road and what variable speed they are at.
Thank you, Worship. Through you. Just double checking with Tony, but I do believe they're both 40 k's
Both
on
40.
those arterial routes. Yeah.
Okay. And so essentially Wakakotahi has made that recommendation.
I'm wrong.
No.
Yes, the Nelson Park is 30k, and the other one's 40.
So Onikawa was 40
Yeah,
and
that's-
Nelson Park's
yeah, that was
30.
staying.
Madam Chair, can I just confirm that was that based on Wakakotahi recommendations?
It was, yes.
Thank you.
So a follow-up question to that then. Do we get any additional information from Whakakotahi as to how they arrive at their variable speed limit?
Yes, they say if the mean operating speed is below 40, they would allow a 30k variable speed limit.
So
And
they
that's
have data available to them to actually demonstrate what the mean speed is in the area, and they use that to make their decision.
Yes, so that they use GPS, Bluetooth kind of data for that, and it's only for the pick-up, drop-off times, so they can narrow it down to the hour before school, an hour after school.
Seems like an interesting measure to use when you're actually considering children's safety. So do we have any ability to challenge that, or is it pretty much we're bound by it?
So
Yeah, you could say I've challenged quite a bit, and
Already.
that's the best I could do.
Okay.
yeah, so just to follow on from that point, if I may, we do generally have a very collegial working relationship with Whakakotahi. This is an area where we don't have quite such good alignment. They do rely on an awful lot of data that is preceding the speed limit changes. And as Tony's just explained, that the 85th percentile before we make any changes is considered. And that, along with traffic volumes, position on the roading hierarchy, are all put into some software, and some algorithms do their thing, and they recommend the speeds and the potential variable speed limit changes off the back of that. That's supposed to be our starting point, and it is generally. We requested citywide that all of our schools went down to 30k as a variable, just in an attempt to keep kids as safe as possible. Unfortunately, we have had quite a bit of pushback on some of those, which is why in the last iteration and in this we have a mix of 30 and 40k variables. We do have the opportunity, hopefully in the next 18 to 24 months, of developing a regional speed management guide, and that's all 4 councils with the regional council. And through that we will try and promote the 30k's to be the norm, rather than just where it happens to be, or align with the algorithms.
Thank you, and thank you for your efforts to date. It is good to hear that we will have another opportunity in the not too distant future to have another crack at getting them all aligned to 30, not just for Napier but across the whole region. So, Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, morning, Robin. Through the chair, is there an opportunity to maybe make them 30 and just not be enforceable like some of the other parts in Napier that we had speed limits and they were there posted, but they weren't necessarily enforceable? I mean, what's the difference?
Technically, through you, Chair, that there is no difference. I think because of the proper process that we are trying to follow, what we really want is the support of police, and that any new limits we impose will be enforceable. As you'll know, I've just overheard courtesy zone mentioned over here. We could potentially go down that route. The other route that we've got, if we continue to hit a brick wall, is engineering, so that the speed limit and the speed environment are indicative of a lower speed limit. So there are still alternatives to go down.
And certainly you've mentioned that the signs are pretty easy to change anyway. If once the time comes, they'll flick them across, being electronic.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor, no? Councillor Simpson?
More or less asked.
Okay. Councillor Bowe?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Both Onikawa Primary and Nelson Park have designated staffed crossing areas during school time, before and after school. And I've got a couple of questions about that. Who decides who puts those in place? Is it council? Is it the school? And secondly, are there any such crossings in the other schools we're considering?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the process is generally that the school will request that they have the appropriate markings, signage, and equipment installed. It is a school-driven initiative generally. They work with the police and ourselves to implement those. There is always a commitment from the school that they will be manned by staff at the appropriate times, and there'll be somewhere to keep the paddles and the flags. So it's generally a school-led initiative. I'll glance across to Tony now to see if there's anything he wants to add. No?
No.
That's all right.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Robin, and to your team for the report. I'm reflecting on the two separate outside Nelson Park School and Onikawa School on the same road, and obviously I drive that road a lot, and for me there's quite some clear differences between the two crossings. For instance, at Nelson Park we have the two side roads coming in, horizontal on-road parking with cars backing out, etc., which is quite different down at the Onikawa end. I don't drive so frequently past the Rainier, and I was just wondering if you could describe the environment to us in terms of its similarity to either of those environments on Kennedy Road.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's around about halfway between them, actually. It's not dual-laned like next to Onikawa, which is obviously why we see reasonably high speeds there, but Guppy Road is fairly wide at that point. There are 2 traffic lanes, 2 fairly wide cycle lanes, then parking lanes, and then fairly open, wide berms. So it feels open. The traffic lanes aren't any wider than they are outside Nelson Park School, for instance, but the level of activity and the, I guess, the visible restrictions are far less than outside Nelson Park, because we've got the palms and so on there as well, plus the 2-stage crossing. The only crossing, there's a Kia crossing at Rainier on Guppy.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions? Right, so we're considering 4 speed limit changes today, and we'll work through them. I don't know that we'll need to do them all separately, but I suspect we'll need to do the first one separately. So that's the Willowbank Avenue reducing from 100 kilometres per hour to 80 kilometres per hour. And this is due to really in alignment with the other rural roads in the area, and actually we have made a number of changes across all of our city with rural roads such as this, reducing them to 80 kilometres an hour. So I am happy to move that this, and seconded by Councillor Taylor. And I guess, as I said, for me this is around consistency. We have received through the paper 51% support in favour of this, but really I think it's important that particularly with these arterial and feeder roads from the likes of Miani into the city area, that there is consistency there. Councillor Taylor, did you wish to speak to this?
Oh, the only thing I would add to that in support is the fact, as Mr. White has made, the comment that the new pathway actually crosses this road, and it is quite dangerous, and I think currently the speeds that are on Willowbank are well in excess of 100k, so if we can pull them back, those people that are approaching on the pathway will be a lot safer. So, yeah.
I'll open up for other councillors to speak to this particular. Councillor McGrath.
Yeah, just through the chair, carrying on, that whole area is changing and changing fast. There's new subdivisions going in, and also the camper vans are coming in and out from that direction as well. So the whole area is changing, and it's good that we've, I think, caught it early.
Thank you. We've had 3 speak in support. Do I have anyone that would like to speak against this? Thank you. Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, I've got no argument as far as consistency is concerned, but certainly in the nature of the fact that I did actually vote against the previous ones. I did note in the paper that does mention 51% say to lower the speed, but also noticed that over 12 of those people were from Bayview, and I'd argue the fact that they probably don't even know where that road is, let alone drive it. Yeah, look, I think that at the end of the day, yes, when it comes to safety, I don't argue with the fact that when you lower the speed, people are less likely to die, but I really don't think that this is going to solve the problem. And that goes way back to driver training. However, that's not what we're here for today. So just speaking against it, I just feel that it's a nice piece of road. And as we've heard from other aspects today where the data has not been in a particular way or a particular flavour to what we've talked about, for instance, some of the data doesn't make sense. I actually contacted Linda Stewart, who's the relationship manager for Wakakotahi for the region, and we've been told that it is in New Zealand, top 10% of unsafe roads in New Zealand. However, her response was it's done on a regional level, and that kind of makes sense to me because Napier only has, as a percentage of the total New Zealand roads, 0.43% of roads. And we're only talking about semi-rural roads here. So if you actually narrow it down, it's highly unlikely or impossible that our semi-rural roads are actually in the top 10% of New Zealand dangerous roads. So just again, I think it's an issue with safety and a bit of common sense colliding and data that just a lot of the time just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? No? So I will put that motion that Willowbank Avenue is reduced from 100 to 80 kilometres an hour. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Thank you. Now, the next three all relate to school zones, and we have Eskdale School, which is currently at 80 km per hour, being a semi-rural road, which we are looking to reduce to 40. Port Ahuriri, an extension of their variable school zone to the 30 kilometres per hour, and Rainier Catholic School, which we had wanted to reduce to 30, and due to Wakakotahi designation, the recommendation here is 40 kilometres per hour. Before I continue with those and ask for someone to move them, I would like to suggest that we make an addition to our resolution today, that we write to Wakakotahi to express our concern that all schools in Napier we have not been able to designate them at 30 kilometre per hour speed zones. So if everyone's happy, we will add that. And then if we're happy to move the rest of the recommendation all together, I'd ask for a mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Price?
Just briefly, I think it's a good move to slow down traffic around schools. We've got to protect our young children who might have difficult making decisions when they're crossing roads. So fully support it, and I think it's a great move.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I just, I couldn't believe that Eskdale School was 80 because on Hill Road, you know, it's actually off the state highway and it's a very steep winding road, and I couldn't believe that it was 80 k's. So that was one that was interesting. But as Councillor Price has said, if we, we've got to look at the safety of the children. And I think the additional recommendation that you're making, would voice our disapproval and want some consistency across the whole city. So.
Councillor Bogue, then Councillor Mawson.
Could I just ask a question, please, of the staff? If we agree to this, is there any flexibility for an extension of the area? That was a point that was raised in a couple of the submissions. Or if we just go ahead and approve this as it is now, does that mean the designated areas will stay as they are?
Through you, Madam Mayor, any change to that length that's under consideration at the moment would require the full bylaw process again. However, hopefully the process will be slightly streamlined once we have the regional speed management guide. We don't have all of the details of the implementation of that yet, though, so I can't confirm.
So just following on from that, there would actually be the ability to relook at that when we do the regional exercise later.
Yep.
Yeah. Councillor Mawson.
Just in support, certainly echoing Councillor Taylor's sentiments about the consistency as well. I mean, obviously that's what Willowbank Road was all about. So you definitely, after that 30k if we can.
Thank you. Thank you. We have had 3 talk in support. Would anyone like to speak against? I will just check in with governance that you've got the wording for that addition. Yeah, that would be good, thank you. So point E at the bottom. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So, Councillor Simpson,
I think if we just extend it to make sure that we're,
can't hear you, sorry.
if we can just extend that E
Yep,
to ensure that it's about consistency. I think it's really important because I think, people feel vulnerable when they think they're being caught out for no good reason.
yep,
And if somebody thinks, it's about psyche, people know on the state highways they can do 100. We've got our regional roads to 80 k's for consistency. That means when people drop off the state highways, they think, oh, I should now be doing 80. When people go past schools, they shouldn't have to double check, is this a 40 or a 30 k zone? It's about consistency.
exactly. But can we also add for safety and consistency?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, I will, sorry, Deputy Mayor Brosnan?
Just a question, we're instructing staff. I'm just wondering if that message
Should come from
From-
from
yourself, Mayor,
the Mayor. Yes, please.
we'll still write it.
You won't instruct me?
We will instruct you, but,
Yes, we can.
Oh, you direct me.
yeah. Too right, as we can.
As you can. Requests. Councillor Taylor, that's lovely.
Please.
Who requests?
Right, I'm glad we've got that sorted. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So that brings us to the conclusion of our hearing today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to council officers. And I would just ask that we stand for our closing karakia. He tō te rangi Mārie, ki runga ngā iwi katoa o Aharere, kia piki te ora, te kaha, me te māramatanga, i ngā wā katoa, te hei mauri ora.
Move it to sign.